Hello, my name is Ananth Iyer. I'm a professor here at the Krannert School of Management, and I'm here to talk about a recent paper that I wrote with a colleague, Omkar Palsule Desai, who's a faculty member at the Indian Institute of Management at Indore. The paper focuses on stockists, who are an essential component of the supply chain in emerging markets. Just to put our work in context, we started off focusing on the retail distribution in India, which really consists of over 12 million small retailers that people go to get product. Similar context with a large number of retailers occurs in China, which has about 6.8 million retailers, and a recent book focused on nano stores tracks about 50 million small retailers in various emerging markets. So the question we were focused on is, how do these small retailers get product? And more importantly, how does a multinational that wants to sell product in these emerging markets, which also happen to be high growth markets, get access to all these small retailers? Now, in order to study this problem, we first started off by collecting data. Along with my co-author, Professor Palsule Desai, we had a bunch of students and faculty travel to over 243 locations along with stockists to understand the interaction and understand the role of the stockist. So what the stockist is the interface between the manufacturer and these retailers. We observed that the stockist plays a variety of roles. They play a logistics role of getting product to all these retailers. They play a merchandising role in recommending to these retailers what products to carry and how to display them. And they also play the role of extending credit to these retailers because they often do not have access to formal credit from banks. So in other words, one can think of these stockists as playing a logistics role and a market-making role, that is enabling these retailers to get and display products and sell them. Now, the question we were focused on is, how does one contract with these stockists? So if you're a multinational, what should be the parameters that you should consider when you contract with these stockists? So what does the word contract mean? The contract here means that the multinational decides what assistance to provide the stockist and what margin, distribution margin, to provide them. To our surprise, when we collected data regarding margins, we found that the margins were low. The lowest end was 2.2%, and on average, the margins were about 5.6%. So the question was, how does such a complicated distribution take place with such small margins? Our goal was to model these stockists, and our model of the stockist and the interaction between the multinational and the stockist was in the form of a principal-agent model from economics. In this model, the multinational is the principal offering a contract, and the agent is the stockist. The unknown parameter is the capability of the stockist to actually get the job done, to build relationships with these retailers, get the product distributed, etc. So this is a classic problem where the stockist's capability is not known, but a contract needs to be written. So this characterizes the information asymmetry in this problem. We analyzed the problem using mathematical tools, and our conclusion is that the contract parameters, which is the amount of assistance and the margin, could be characterized by looking at three parameters. One parameter was the potential role of the stockist in enhancing demand. The second parameter was the logistics difficulty, the density of these retailers, and the cost to access these retailers. And the third was the capability mix, that is, how much did the multinational know regarding the capability of stockists? That is, were there a large difference between their capabilities? What was their mix, etc.? Using these three parameters, our model forecasted an optimal margin and an optimal level of assistance. We then collected empirical data to try to match our model predictions with existing contracts, and we found a statistically significant match. So what did we learn from this exercise? First, we learned that it is possible to distribute with very small margins, but what's required is a very high level of inventory turns. Remember, inventory turns refers to the number of times one can turn the inventory, that is, use a given level of inventory to satisfy demand. In some cases, we found turns as high as 85, which means there were deliveries approximately 1.5 times a week. Well, that means that the same margin should be multiplied by this turns to get an idea of the overall annual margin obtained by the stockists. So imagine that you have a 3% margin and you have 80 turns. So that means from an annual perspective, for a given level of inventory, it generates a 240% margin, which is 80 times 3. Now, that means that from a return on investment perspective, the stockist has, for a given investment, a 240% return for that investment, and that can be used to cover all of the costs associated with making the distribution. The second thing we noticed was that the mix of products, the assortment of products mattered in terms of the ability of the stockist to impact retail demand. The third issue was it depended on whether it was an urban market or a rural market in order to get an idea of the distribution cost. Now, we used our model to try to understand managerial choices made by multinational. For example, Procter & Gamble has made some significant shifts in order to increase its profitability in India by increasing their focus on the urban market and decreasing their product mix so as to be more targeted. One can understand how that might be a competitive response by P&G to other entrenched multinational fast-moving consumer goods players in India, such as Lever. So what does one learn from this research? One learns that accessing new markets, where there are large number of small retailers, may well require new entities in the supply chain. It's important to take into account context parameters to design appropriate contracts. And more importantly, for us as researchers, it helps us to keep our research grounded in problems faced by managers.